Welcome to Off the Page, the show where we talk with Colorado authors to get the story behind the story. I'm Stacey McKenzie, a librarian here at Mamie Dowd Eisenhower Public Library in Broomfield, and today I'll be talking with Chris Myers. She is a prolific author, and her most recent book is The Confetti Killer. Hi, Chris, how are you?
Great, and thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your time and inviting me up here. It's great.
Well, when I looked at what you write and all the different things you write, I thought she's going to be great for the show. We've got a lot to talk about. So, Chris, tell me, do you have a first career in addition to your writing?
Yes, I do have a real job, and of course my first love is writing, and if I could do that full time, I definitely would, but health insurance is hard to get, so, and I have a child, and I do have a real job, and I'm an engineer.
Oh, okay. And how does that compare as far, can you borrow any of your knowledge of engineering to write your books, or is it completely separate?
I do have another series that I had started a while back, and it was technical thrillers. So I can always go back to that. But I think I'm like most nerdy people. I had several different things I wanted to do in college. I started out as a biochem major, and my emphasis was in genetics and in psychology. And then I said, you know, I want to travel, I want to have fun, and I'm also starving, and I want to make money. So I said, well, what can I do that I can get out really quick and make some money? And I said, oh, electrical engineer, I can go do this.
Yeah.
And then I said, what was I thinking? I should have been using my left brain all this time.
It's a Renaissance woman is what you are.
Oh, thank you.
You're using all parts of your brain.
But this is the most fun, so.
Well, these books, you just started publishing a couple years ago.
Yes.
And then you put out already 5 books here. What happened 2 years ago where all of a sudden you just put pen to paper?
Well, I've been writing since about 2nd grade, and that's when I had my first play published at the Catholic school, and it was a horror. And I don't think the nuns quite got what I was trying to get across to them, because it was actually a thriller about children being eaten by pumpkins. And we had this huge production, they put it on, and I was like going, I could do this. But then other things, there are other things you love to do too. So, and I had started a book when I first got out of college, and I had it about half a way done, and it's a thriller too, but it's also a satire, and it's about a man who kills lawyers.
Oh,
as many as possible.
I imagine that would have a lot of fans.
Yes.
So we hope to see that one. I have to ask you about awards that you have won, and there was quite a list of awards. What awards have you won for your book so far?
Well, I was a semifinalist for the Amazon contest, and I won first place for The Confetti Killer in the Paul Gillette, and I've won through the Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers too. And you know, it's good validation to actually get those awards, but really what you want are readers.
Yes. And now that you've won some awards, Chris, are you hoping you win more, or is it still just about getting readers?
I really want readers, because I want to build a readership so I can do this full time.
Wow. Yeah, and you're well on your way.
Thank you.
Let's talk about The Confetti Killer first. That is your most recent book, and I love the tagline, "The killer left a trail of blood and glitter." Tell me a little bit about The Confetti Killer.
Well, the main protagonist is Kylie Watts, and she's a forensic psychologist. And she uses her nightmares of the past to solve cold cases. And in order to get rid of those nightmares from repeating themselves, she solves the case and those nightmares go away. And so that's how the story follows. She gets pulled then into another case, a copycat killer of an older case in present day, into Chicago. So she gets pulled into another case, and that brings her book that she's writing about for a 50-year-old murder into the limelight.
Wow, and this is going to be a series, is that correct?
Well, when somebody asked me, an agent wanted to pick this book up, and I turned her down, but she wanted a series, so I do have a series outlined for it.
Now let's talk about the Lennon Girls trilogy. What's that one about?
Well, the whole series is really about the maturation of a teenage boy into adulthood. And he has had a very rough childhood where he had to raise his younger sister. And so in the first book, he's never had a girlfriend. He has very famous parents, and he can get sexually anything he wants. And all of a sudden he decides, well, maybe I should have a girlfriend. Maybe this isn't the best way for me to go. And there's always been this really smart girl that he doesn't think he could ever possibly get in his choir class. He says, well, maybe I should be nice to her. Yeah. And eventually they develop a friendship, and this is the first book.
And so you've got, is the other one done, or outlined, or where are we looking at for
It's about halfway done, and it's completely outlined. I do work from an outline.
Okay.
And the second book is really about, he's got a girlfriend now, and now what does he do? He doesn't really understand the protocol to actually have a girlfriend. But then I always throw in problems. I'm really kind of mean to my characters, but that's what makes the books more interesting. But in this book, he meets the little girl he fell in love with and proposed to when he was in 5th grade. So on top of that, he has a girlfriend, and then he runs into this girl who noticed him when nobody else did. And she comes from money, and like he does. So they have a lot in common, but she never was interested in his money. She was interested in him because she saw this young boy taking care of his little sister, and that's what attracted her to him.
And let's move on to the Ripster series, a really different set of books. Tell me about those.
Well, this is a ghost hunting series. It's for young adult teen fiction, and Jolie Livingston is a goth girl, and she moves from New Orleans after Katrina hit up to Plymouth, Massachusetts. And she's a psychic, and her only really good friend is a hot dead guy. And he's a great character, and he's lots of fun. And then she collects these other kids her age that have similar abilities to be able to speak to the dead. Wow. And she has never had that before, so this is all new to her. And she finds that this is kind of a mecca for psychics in this area.
So you mentioned that Ripster series was for teens. What type of audience for Lennon girls? And then also, what's your target for Confetti Killer?
So the Ripster series is teen fiction, so it's and it could go all the way to 10-year-olds and up because it's very clean. There's no explicit sex. There's no really sex in the books at all. There's no bad language. There's no swearing or anything. Whereas the Lennon's Girls Trilogy, that is considered new adult. And new adult is for college-age kids and up.
Oh, okay.
And it's a blossoming new genre for readers that really like romance. And this series not only envelopes romance, but it also covers family.
What would Confetti Killer audience
Well, that would be
like?
probably 17 and up, and it's a dark, gritty thriller.
So you are trying to write for all ages here, except maybe little ones. Do you have a children's book you're working on yet?
Oh, I do have children's books that I have written back. I have just tons of folders of different books and different ideas that I've had, and actually that came from my daughter and my husband when we were at Atlantis. They had there was this really big guy and this really little kid, and they got onto the inner tubes to go into the shark tank to go all the way down. And when the big guy got onto the inner tube, the little guy went flying up, and I was going, this would make a great children's story.
So you just get your ideas from everywhere.
Yes, and that's what's so much fun.
You just write for such a vast array of ages with such different focus, some supernatural elements, some not. How do you adjust whenever you are writing, let's say, the next Lennon Girls trilogy versus something for your young adult?
Well, they all have very different voices. They're very distinct. And of course, the teen kids, whenever you're writing, even for younger children, you do want your voices to sound just a little bit older because they see themselves as older.
Good hint.
So
yeah, good tip.
when I'm writing those, they have some maturity in there, but they're kids.
Yeah.
So Their voices are just completely different. My daughter is no longer a teenager, but I had a great time when I was a teen, so I remember a lot of that. My characters talk to me nonstop. So these particular series, I know them. And so they talk to me, and it's easy for me to write them. When I get into a new book, it sometimes takes me a first draft before the voice really starts taking hold.
And I hear that over and over again, that authors have a really intimate relationship with their characters. But do you ever have any overlap in any of your worlds here? I have to sort it out that way.
Oh yes, I like to actually have a little overlap and see if people actually catch that. I can't really tell you because then I'd be telling you parts of the book.
Oh, you've given a good hint though.
But there are always little overlaps that you will find. Plots are very small points, but they're always in there.
So you've got 3 separate series here, and you have other projects that you're working on in the writing genres. Do you work on one project at a time till it's finished, or do you actually work a little on everything?
Well, it's always hard not to work on the new shiny toy. You get this idea for a book and you're like going, oh my gosh, I just want to get these characters down and get like 3 or 4 chapters down. So it's very difficult. Like about a year ago, these characters started talking to me, and they're both very snarky, and one girl's name is Sin, and the guy's name is Shane, and they don't get along. She's looking for Mr. Perfect, and Mr. Perfect is not him. And of course, she ends up having to rely on him out in the middle of nowhere. And so they kind of took over, and I think I got like 40,000 words written in a very short period of time. But I keep trying to put that down because I need to get the trilogy finished, and I'm almost done with that. And I always work on at least one of the Ripster series at the same time. And there'll probably be 6 to 7 books before I finish with that one.
6 or 7 in the Ripster series.
Yes.
And then there's going to be 3 in Lennon Girls.
Yes.
And then Confetti Killer, we just don't know yet with your
Well, we'll wait and
protagonist
see
there.
what happens with that. If I get, once you get some followers and stuff like that, that also encourages you to keep writing. I have several readers interested in the Ripster series, which are adults, and they keep saying to me, when are you coming out with the next book? You know, what's in it and what's it going to be about? So then I'm like going, well, I guess I better start working on that one.
People love a supernatural element in the book, along with real life stuff. Why do you think people are so attracted to that supernatural element?
Well, religion's always been popular, and having spirits and ghosts, that's what a lot of a religion is about.
Yeah.
So.
And the popular thing, vampires and Harry Potter and all those.
See, I consider that the vampires and werewolves horror, but they call it paranormal. But to me, it's not really. Paranormal is like, to me, aliens and ghosts and other types of.
You did the horror thing with the pumpkins eating children.
Yes.
So yeah, you've got that too. That's terrific. You offer writing workshops.
Yes.
And I'm curious, with such a broad spectrum, how do you teach people how to write, and how do you show them how to focus when they're writing?
I've taught many workshops from middle school to adults, and really what we do is a lot of my workshops focus on craft. So sometimes I'll do a workshop on point of view, or on suspense, how to build suspense, or how to plot out a book. And lately I've been doing a couple workshops online, but they have to do more with independent publishing, like what do you expect when you go through a blog tour?
Your books are independently published?
Yes.
And let me know a little bit about that. And then what is a blog tour? That's I haven't heard that one before.
Well, originally I had an agent. I was a top agent, and at the same time I'd just gotten an agent. Amazon contacted me after I had placed like in a semi-finalist for their contest, and an editor contacted me directly and said, I'm really interested in your book. So I went to my agent because I figured she's the one who's supposed to give me direction on this. Well, we had 2 other editors, 2 from the Big Six, that were interested in Date with the Dead, and I thought, oh, I'm sold, I'm done. And She turned down 2, and after I waited 10 months for this other editor to get back, after working very closely with her, I said, you know what, I'm going to self-publish. So, and that's when I started. I have to say the marketing part is the hardest part, and especially for a writer, because we want to sit in our little hole and work. We don't want to get out there, but you have to engage the reader, and this is what's so important in independent publishing.
And the blog tour, what is that?
A blog tour is when you put your book into a blog tour, and several bloggers will make posts for it and do reviews for you. And it can run from anywhere from a day to several months. And you pay for this, and what you're looking for out of this is to get reviewers.
Okay.
And once you have those reviewers, then you can use, like in the back of these books, you'll see that I have bloggers who have actually recommended the book.
I see.
So you can use those for blurbs.
That's nice. What else can we learn from your writing workshops?
Well, that's pretty much what I do, based on craft, teaching craft, and like I said, I've done some independent publishers, and I put information out there for that.
We have a lot of aspiring writers out there, people who are maybe working on their first book. If you had to give them one piece of advice, what would you tell them?
For new writers, join a writers group. There's 2 excellent ones in the area. The Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers, they're in Denver, and then Pikes Peak Writers, they're in Colorado Springs. In fact, Pikes Peak's Writers, their conference is coming up in April.
Okay.
And so that's an excellent opportunity for you to learn some of these crafts, go to these workshops, and become a part of the community.
And I knew you'd say that, because that's the one thing I hear over and over again, is writers groups are so important to the process, especially when you're starting out.
Yes, because they help to support you too, emotionally, because it's emotionally draining, especially if you're out there looking for an agent and you have all these rejection letters and that kind of information, and your buddies are the ones who are going to say, no, don't listen to them, keep going.
And they've been there.
Yes.
They've been there. That's great. You have a website. What can we find out when we visit your website?
My website contains a list of all my current books that are out there, and also what's coming out next. And it also does list, when I have time, I go out there and say anything that I'm going to be doing workshop-wise.
And can people contact you about possible workshops?
Yes,
from you?
there's an email address, and also my blog is on there too.
Terrific. This is going to be a hard one for you to answer, but can you narrow down what your next project is going to be? What's coming out next?
Well, after these series, but with Ripsters, I'll probably be working on another project as soon as the trilogy is done. I'm probably going to be working on romance. That's the number one genre. But I also like, for me, romance, I'm not a big romance reader. I really like multi-genre books where there's more stuff in it, like a little bit of thriller element. I don't have a problem with some of the explicit sex that you're seeing quite a bit of lately.
That's a popular one now, yeah.
Well, not only that, it helps to promote your book, which is unusual, but it's not unusual. You know, people, that's what they think about.
Sure.
So that's what they're going to buy.
That sells. Sex sells.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I am going to be focusing probably on another romance, but it's a thriller.
Do you feel unique that you write so many different, for so many different audiences?
I think most authors want to write for different audiences. If you look at some of the big name authors, look at James Patterson. He's writing for teens and he's writing for adults, and he writes some as fantasy. He also wrote a detective series. So
some people stick to one, but you're saying most authors would like to.
I would think they want to do cross-genre. Even J.K. Rowling, she just put out a detective story. It wasn't under her name. She put it under a pseudonym. But in order for the book to sell, they ended up putting her name back into the book.
That's right. After there was a leak, I think I heard.
Yes. So.
Well, those are big names, but I am impressed. I want you to know that a lot of authors stick with one genre. Maybe they figure they want to stick with what's safe, but I'm just impressed, and I feel like they're all such interesting topics.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
You bet. I'd like to thank Chris Myers for being on the show today and sharing all of her wonderful books with us. Check your local libraries for the books that we've talked about on today's show, and join us for more next time on Off the Page.